You see it almost every weekend at the park. Someone unclips the leash, feeling generous, feeling like this is what freedom looks like for a dog. And for about 10 seconds, it looks great. Then, a squirrel crosses the path, or another dog barks somewhere out of sight, and that same dog is now sprinting toward the road with its owner screaming a name that means nothing anymore. Because in that moment, the dog is not a pet. It is a nervous system running on pure instinct, and the leash that used to be there is lying uselessly in the grass 15 feet behind. Now picture a dog walking through a crowded street in Japan. Leash on, always. Not a shock collar, not a prong collar, just a simple leash, held with almost no tension, and the dog is not straining against it even once. It walks past bicycles, past children, past other dogs, past food stalls, and it never once acts like the leash is something to escape. It is not suppressed. It is not exhausted into obedience. It simply does not see the leash as a cage. It sees it as a line of communication, and it has never known anything else. That is not a different breed. It is not a calmer country full of accidentally easier dogs. It is a completely different relationship with what a leash is actually for, one built on a handful of decisions most Western owners have never once questioned, because they were taught the opposite lesson from the very first day they brought a puppy home. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you are going to understand why the leash you think of as a restriction is the exact thing standing between your dog and a genuine disaster, and why letting it off was never the reward you thought it was. Welcome back to Canine Flux. If you have not subscribed yet, this is the video to change that, because every week we break down the gap between what dog owners assume and what actually keeps a dog safe, calm, and easy to live with. Here is the first thing you need to sit with before we go any further. In Japan, off-leash walking in public is not just culturally rare, it is functionally almost non-existent. And in many municipalities, it is against local ordinance outside of designated enclosed areas. But the leash law is not the real reason this works. Plenty of places have leash laws that get ignored constantly. The real reason is that the leash itself is treated as a completely different object, one that communicates instead of restrains. And once you understand that difference, you will never look at your own leash the same way again. And there is one habit on this list, the shortest and simplest of them all, that most Western owners are doing in exactly the wrong direction, without realizing it is the thing undoing all their other training. We will get there. But first, answer me this in the comments. When you walk your dog, is the leash tight or slack? Your answer says more about your dog's stress level on that walk than you think. Number 1. The leash is short, and it stays short, on purpose. In Japan, you will rarely see a retractable leash in daily use, and when you do, it is usually reserved for open, empty spaces, never for a sidewalk or a crowded street. The standard is a short, fixed lead, often no more than 4 to 6 feet, held close to the body. Western dog culture has moved almost entirely in the opposite direction, retractable leashes stretching 10, 16, even 26 feet, giving the dog what feels like independence, but actually gives them something else entirely, a constant, low-grade opportunity to make decisions the owner has no ability to override in time. Trainers who study leash reactivity point to something most people never connect. Distance itself is arousing. A dog 16 feet away from its owner is operating in a completely different behavioral state than a dog 3 feet away. More alert, more likely to fixate on something in the environment, more likely to hit the end of the leash at speed before the owner can react at all. A short leash is not a punishment, it is proximity. And proximity is one of the fastest ways to keep a dog's nervous system anchored to yours instead of scanning the world for its own next move. Owners who switch from long leashes to short, fixed ones often notice the same thing within days. The dog checks in more. The pulling decreases, not because the leash is physically shorter, but because the dog has stopped rehearsing the fantasy of being somewhere else. Number 2. Loose leash, not straining leash, is the entire goal, and it is trained from week 1. Watch a dog on a walk in Japan, and you will notice the leash forms a soft J shape, never a straight, taut line. This is not an accident, and it is not an advanced skill reserved for show dogs. It is the baseline expectation from the very first walk a puppy ever takes outside. In much of the West, a tight leash is treated as background noise, something you brace against, something you accept as simply what walking a dog feels like. But a taut leash is constant information, and it is almost always the wrong information. Every ounce of tension a dog feels against its collar or harness is a signal, and dogs read tension as urgency, whether the human intends that or not. A tight leash tells a dog's body that something out here requires forward motion, right now, and the dog obliges, because you are quite literally transmitting that message through 6 feet of nylon every single second the line stays taut. A slack leash transmits the opposite. There is nowhere urgent to be. Nothing out here requires speed. Trainers who correct chronic pulling almost always start in the same place, not with equipment, but with teaching the owner to stop moving forward the instant the leash goes tight, so the dog learns that tension gets it nowhere and slack gets it everywhere. It is a slower lesson than most owners want to hear, but it is the entire foundation everything else on this list is built on top of. Number 3. Structured heel position during transitions. Freedom during dedicated play. In many Japanese households, a dog is expected to walk directly beside or slightly behind its owner, while moving through doorways, crossing streets, passing other people, and entering or exiting any space. This is not the dog being restricted from having any freedom at all. It is a clear separation between transition time, which stays structured, and designated off-leash playtime, which happens in enclosed dog runs built specifically for that purpose. Western dog culture tends to blur this line completely. A dog might be allowed to range ahead, sniff wherever it wants, greet whoever it wants, for the entire walk, with no distinction between the boring, high-risk parts of a route and the safe, low-risk parts. Behaviorists studying impulse control in domestic dogs note that dogs without a consistent heel expectation during transitions often struggle far more with reactivity because they have never practiced defaulting to a calm position near their owner when the environment gets unpredictable. A dog who only knows freedom, everywhere, all the time, has no practiced fallback for the moment a truck backfires or another dog lunges. A dog who has spent months walking calmly at heel through doorways and crossings has that fallback wired in automatically because it has rehearsed it hundreds of times in situations with nothing at stake. Number 4. The leash is never used as a punishment tool, only as information. If a dog misbehaves on a walk in a Japanese household, you will rarely see a sharp leash correction, the kind of quick jerk many Western trainers were taught for decades as standard technique. Instead, the far more common response is simply to stop moving entirely, going still until the dog reorients on its own. The leash itself stays relaxed even during a correction. This distinction matters more than it sounds like it should. A leash that only ever communicates calmly, slack, gentle guidance, occasional light pressure, becomes a trusted line of information the dog actually listens to. A leash that occasionally snaps tight as punishment becomes something the dog associates with unpredictability, and dogs who associate their leash with occasional pain or sudden pressure often become more reactive on leash over time, not less, because the leash itself has become part of what triggers the alert state instead of something that calms it. Consistency is the entire mechanism here. A tool that only ever means one thing works far better than a tool that sometimes means guidance and sometimes means correction, because the dog can no longer tell which one is coming. Public leash use is treated as basic courtesy, not personal preference. This is the cultural layer most people miss entirely. In Japan, keeping a dog leashed in any shared public space is not viewed as an individual choice about your own dog's temperament. It is viewed as a baseline consideration for everyone else sharing that space. The elderly person who startles easily, the child who has not learned to read a dog's body language yet, the other dog on a walk who may not want to be approached. In much of the West, off-leash freedom gets framed as a reward for good behavior, something a well-trained dog has earned the right to. But that framing puts the entire burden of managing an unpredictable public environment onto strangers who never agreed to that risk in the first place. Community-level thinking around shared space changes the entire calculation. It stops being a question of how good is my dog and becomes a question of What does everyone around us deserve, regardless of how good my dog is? And that shift alone removes the guesswork, the gambling, the everyday small risk that off-leash culture asks strangers to silently accept. Number 6. The leash is the connection point, never the obstacle to connection. Go back to that scattering, panicked dog from the beginning of this video, sprinting for the road the second the leash came off. Nothing about that dog was broken, and nothing about it needed a firmer hand or a heavier collar. That dog had simply never learned that the leash was not standing between it and the world. It had never had the chance to learn that, because the leash had only ever come off, never stayed on as a steady, calm presence the dog could actually rely on. Now picture that same dog with a shorter leash held close instead of a 16-foot line stretching out ahead of it, a slack line instead of a taut one, a calm heel through every doorway and crossing instead of unstructured range the entire route, a leash that only ever communicates gently instead of one that occasionally snaps as punishment, and a household that treats the leash as a basic courtesy to the world, not a cage the dog is waiting to escape. None of that requires a different dog. It requires seeing the leash itself completely differently, not as the barrier between your dog and freedom, but as the exact thing that makes calm, safe freedom possible in the first place. Pick one of these 6 tonight, just one. Give it a week before you add the next, because a dog does not learn a new relationship with a leash all at once. It learns it the same slow way it learns everything that actually lasts, one calm walk at a time, until the leash stops feeling like a restriction to either of you and simply becomes the thing that was quietly keeping your dog safe the whole time. If this changed how you think about that leash hanging by your front door, subscribe to Canine Flux. Every week we go deeper into what actually keeps your dog calm, safe, and easy to trust in the real world, and it is rarely the thing you were told to focus on.